Hey David, how are you doing?
Great. It's fabulous to be here in Istanbul, and this is a really great event for us.
Your first time in Istanbul?
Unfortunately, yes, and I won't have much time to enjoy it because I got another gig I got to get on a plane tomorrow for, but I'm looking forward to having a chance to spend some time here. And everyone says it's such a beautiful city.
Absolutely. I know you've got a lot of supporters here, as we've seen all morning. And hopefully we get to see you here every Istanbul blockchain week going forward. But so David, obviously, you've been working in blockchain and cryptography for longer than anyone in this room, I think it's safe to say.
Yes.
So you've obviously seen it all, the highs and the lows, the ups and the downs, and I think that's really fascinating. I'd love to tap into that. So to begin with, I really wanted to just kind of ask you, what was it that inspired you and gave you the kind of confidence to start working on cryptography in the first place?
Well, when I was a kid, I realized how powerful secrets are. And growing up during the Nixon administration, I recognized that the public needed to be able to exert some of its power, and so I became interested in the potential of cryptography. And then when the government in the United States tried to classify all work on cryptography and prevent it from taking place, I decided to organize a conference on cryptography, even though they said they would put us in jail, but they didn't. And so sort of set cryptography free. And I recognized the importance of not only owning your own keys, but privacy in structuring the upcoming information age, even already in the late 70s. So it's been a mission for 40 plus years that I've been pursuing to find ways to let people control their own informational lives.
And obviously being in this space for as long as you have, I'm sure you had and still have aspirations and goals for this technology. Are you happy with the progress that's been made thus far? Is it what you expected to see?
Well, you asked me that right in the, we've seen some major cracks in the infrastructure recently, last week or so, and it's, I know there are ways to avoid that sort of thing and to build a much more sound financial system using techniques of cryptography, and I'd really like to see that happen because it's such a pity, when there's systemic, failures.
Yeah. Okay. So I understand, you were working on eCash a long time back now. But for those that don't know about eCash, could you just fill them in on what that was?
Sure. Well, so in '82, I gave a paper on eCash, and then in '95, the Digital company issued eCash its own cyberbucks currency, and then also Deutsche Bank issued it in Deutsche Marks, and it was issued in Australian dollars, and so on. I think it's a little bit underappreciated these days how good eCash actually was, because when you obtain eCash, it's like paper money. You make up your own banknote serial number at random. You hide that in an envelope. You get it signed at the bank as a part of withdrawing the money from your, say, bank account. And so when they return that signed envelope to you, you can homomorphically remove it, and now you have the bank's signature on your serial number. And they don't know what your serial number is, so no one knows how much money you are holding in terms of these signed notes, and they cannot cancel them because they don't know which serial numbers you have. They cannot take away, and they can't also trace them. When you spend them, they won't know it's you spending the money. So it's more than privacy. It's actually the users have ownership and control over their own money, And that's something that's a little bit absent from the blockchain version. And so I'm excited that some people have seen that it would be great to try to bring something like eCash back again. And so finally found a new way to do it that's way better. I'm excited about that.
Yeah, exactly. I think the news came out recently that there's been a new iteration of eCash that is under a test pilot currently with the bank.
That's right. Yeah, so actually the Swiss National Bank and the Bank for International Settlements have a joint venture that's building a test version to see how it works. I mean, I can't say much more than what they've made public, but you know, this is an improved version of eCash that actually has better privacy than the original eCash. In fact, a new kind of privacy, inalienable privacy, which we speak about, and it's quantum resistant in the strongest sense, and it's scalable, and you can think of it as a kind of unstealable money as well. So it's a really nice payment system, and yeah, so I'm happy to see it coming back.
Absolutely. So I think it's quite interesting, right, because there's lots of talks now about central bank digital currencies, even in Turkey itself, and potentially with the use of eCash, you can get privacy and CBDC.
That's right. So really the reason that I did the scientific work on this, which is my main contribution on it, is to prove that CBDC can certainly protect privacy very well and be quantum secure and be efficient. So there's no good excuse for any country to issue a CBDC that's not privacy protected. So
I think another hot topic, and a lot of people that are anti-crypto, anti-blockchain, they try to hit us with is this, oh, once quantum computing comes around, it's going to crack the encryption of every single private key. But I believe a feature of eCash too is that it's quantum resistant secure.
It is resistant to counterfeiting of the money in with the strongest type of quantum resistant cryptography that's available or possible. So yeah, it's very, very secure. It also, like blockchain, it makes public the total amount of money issued. And that's a nice feature. So it's somewhere between blockchain, traditional payments, and the original privacy protecting technology. It's got a lot going for it.
I believe that's been quite a trend of your work recently. Also with Elixxir network and Elixxir being quantum resistant, quantum secure.
Yes, we were able to demonstrate running around for 10 days a test of quantum resistance in a stronger sense again, consensus and payments, and we were able to run 3,500 payments per second continuously with that security level on from 400 to 1,200 nodes, which showed linear scalability, so it could actually work with any number of computers. And those nodes were only single core with 100 megabit up and down link gap. So on a server class node, you could do way more than all Visa, MasterCard, all the pay, all global payments combined. You could handle that very easily.
So when we were having breakfast this morning, we were talking about, obviously, unfortunately, the awful crash that happened recently with FTX, and it's affecting the whole industry, maybe a few other exchanges as well. But we spoke about the integration of liquidity and eCash too, about potentially being a solution to this whole issue.
Yeah, thanks. That's my vision, really. I think if you have a lot of good stable coins or CBDCs or what have you, then the remaining problem in payments is, of course, cross-border intercurrency payments. And if you implement them during, with conventional techniques where there's kind of custody, then you have settlement risk, and that's really what the FTX thing is, is a breakdown in settlement risk. If you use liquidity, it's an atomic swap, there is no settlement risk because the transactions settle simultaneously with clearing. So this, so a little liquidity and some really good stable coins, you're done. That's it. That would create a risk-free, fee-free, very usable secure global payments facility. I think that can do a lot. That McKinsey says that it's a big consulting firm, their annual report on the payments industry is global payments industry crossed the $2 trillion fee mark. It's 2% of global GDP as just in exclusive fees. That's a horrible tax on all kinds of economic growth and on most people.
Definitely. So, I mean, how far away are we to getting that in the hands of average user, like me, for example?
Well, we're working as hard as we can. If you want to help us or in whatever way, that would be great. But yeah, I think there's no real technical obstacle to moving this forward now.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, I can't wait to hear more about that. So then, just zooming out a little bit. Blockchain technology. What do you think is its most important impact that it can have on the world, society as a whole?
Well, it's a good question, and I don't have a bad answer for it, but what I can say is that I'm hopeful that people will get the sense from this technology that they can control their own informational lives. And that's a very powerful thing. And it also has implications for democracy and control over larger groups of people and regions. So I think it can profoundly change global civilization, and it is what's really needed now.
I mean, so, again, you're one of the most iconic builders of cryptography in the entire world, and you've seen it all. I'm sure you're not doing it for the money. You're obviously a true believer, a true builder. What is it that keeps you motivated day and day to keep building, innovative tools using Web3?
Well, it's the vision for at least the medium term, and also, truth be told, I'm motivated by finding these solutions, which no one else has ever seen, and it's kind of exciting and challenging. And I work with creative younger maybe people, and that's very motivating as well. But I am ultimately motivated by this vision of making the world a far better, more sort of humane place.
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely an inspiration for me, and I'm sure for many people in this room. I'm trying to imagine you, like, in your office building, or in your, what does it look like day to day? Are you in this space when, hacking, or what does it look like? Is it less glamorous?
No, I'm not really. The last time I wrote code was maybe a little bit when I was in college, but actually, I have some responsibilities. My team, and as that means you have to, you're responsible for everything that goes wrong, and have to help people and have problems and so forth. But I hope to clear free time to really try to focus on the big picture and find, opportunities for innovation. That's what I've been doing my whole career. I was trained as an academic, so I'm supposed to come with new ideas and publish them and that sort of thing. So on a good day, I have the opportunity to sit around and just really try to think about what's important and what could help move things in a good direction, and see if I can come up with some new ideas along those lines. That's what I really like to do.
And do you have these kind of like core OG builders that have been with you for years? Or
oh yeah. We have a really great team, and recently we have separated the foundation from the company, and so I was sad to lose some of those. Some of my best people are in the foundation. I never talked to them. I absolutely, literally let the foundation be an autonomous entity. But yeah, so that was painful. But really, my management style is about encouraging people to sort of rise to their potential, and I give everyone plenty of opportunity to do that. So that's also kind of gratifying.
Yeah, fantastic. So it would be great to know really like what kind of ecosystem you're trying to build, like with X Network, with Elixxir, with the various different tools that you're building. What are your kind of core focus areas in building those different products?
Well, the mixing we call CMix, which is to speed up the mixing against the second technology put forward in the end of the 70s, early 80s. That provides some kind of underlying privacy communication, so-called metadata shredding, and that turns out to be fundamental, and it needs to underlie not only privacy-protected payments, but also any kind of social media that's really decentralized and censorship-resistant and surveillance-resistant. So that's sort of an integral part of the XX network. We have the quantum physics consensus of payments, and then the same nodes do the mixing. And so that's fundamental infrastructure that we can build all kinds of things on, and have to build some things on. And recently we issued the Speakeasy in alpha. I hope some of you have to see the kind of channels that allows, and we're in the process of, let's say, brainstorming and planning how we're going to make that into a really great social media for widespread use. So that's kind of the whole ecosystem in social media itself, and then the financial infrastructure that I mentioned.
So you see that being used by everyone, or is it by certain groups of people, or is it for widespread use, like you said?
Well, if you look at the history of social media, one thing people often forget is that the big ones today will be forgotten, a few years from now. This has happened over and over again. And another thing that you'll see is that social media, of course, tends to start in a niche, kind of in a very focused group or use an area, and then slowly build out. And we've seen that happen in the security context pretty recently, where users migrate from one more widely used social media to one that has a more focus on privacy, because some privacy violations become known. What we're hoping to do in terms of taking, you see, decentralized social media is really the only way to do it. Actually, Dorsey said that to Musk before he bought Twitter and ruined it. So we have that. We have the infrastructure for that. We believe that it cannot really be done without the mixing, which we have. You can do it in a fake way, but you can't really do it in a centralized way and censorship resistant. So, and surveillance resistant. So we aspire to make something that could be very widely used, but the path to getting there may be through the crypto community to sort of replace these actually, maybe not as good channels that we use today with the speakeasy, and then from there move to a wider adoption.
So looking ahead over the next few years, you mentioned obviously decentralized social media is something that you guys have a focus on, but what do you think, let's say the next 2-3 years, next bull market, what do you think will be the big trends or the innovations that we see that actually get widespread adoption?
Well, I hope they'll be what we're talking to you about. It would be unfortunate if we have to go through another iteration of things where people, assert that things are new and decentralized and, conforming to the ethos. But in fact, if you look a little, more deeply at them, they're actually worse than existing systems. When you're in this space, you don't really feel like standing up and calling this kind of thing out, because there's this feeling of, well, we should all just promote the space and don't disparage it, don't say negative. But when people just start really damaging the space, I think it may be fair enough to say, isn't it obvious to everyone, if you look at it, that the exchanges that we have in the crypto space are worse than NASDAQ or this other regulated exchange, way worse. It's known, but no one stands up and says it. Well, now there's a lot of implosion. There may be a lot more. I'm not trying to foment it, but from our intelligence, you can see these problems run rather deep. So I hope that, like Liquidfinity, can move in and actually show how to do trading without risk and without the fees in a much more, truly decentralized peer-to-peer manner. So that's a development I hope will be in the short term. And I also believe that, like, if we could do a really decentralized social media, which it's live now, but it's not as social as we'd like it to be. This is a kind of holy grail medium term for the community, because it's a way to make the benefits of our technology available to a mass audience, maybe without them really knowing much about it, but really get people using it widely. So I think that would be fantastic.
So would it be fair to say that you think this whole kind of CeFi cleanse is actually in the long term healthier for our industry?
Well, it depends on what it is. I hope it doesn't really damage the industry, and I think hopefully if it can stimulate the adoption of some of these, this next generation of technology that doesn't have these vulnerabilities, that it would be really great. Yeah.
Okay, so going back to your work with Elixxir and Exponential Network, what does the kind of future hold, for the products that you're building for you yourself, like in the next few years? What are you focused on?
Well, I'm working on a new project which I'm not really at liberty to speak about at this moment. But it's something that I'm working with. I think you can draw on a lot of these technologies and also have a really big impact in the world. So I feel guilty if I don't put a lot of effort into it, but it's not yet announced. But when it is, you'll see what I'm talking about. So this is when in the 60s, 70s, bands would always complain that when they would go on tour, they'd always be asked to play their old favorite hits, and they can't play their new material. And I feel the same way, because I did some stuff, and everyone has to study it when they're in school, and everyone knows about it. But I aspire to do some really important new things, and so I've got some stuff lined up. So I say, like to say, watch this space. That's the American expression. Yeah. So it's new stuff coming out. Not all of it's quite public, but yeah, that's the reality I'm focused on.
Yeah. Sounds like you've got a lot of projects that you're working on. Okay, well, I look forward to hearing more about that. But again, with your expertise as a builder, as a developer, like, what do you think are the, like, across the timeline of you've been in the space for? What were
40 years.
40? Okay, I was going to say 20 years. Okay, 40 years. That's about the time.
Well, depends how you look at it. Yeah, because the original blockchain stuff was in my dissertation, which also appeared to as was the cash.
Yeah. So what I'm interested to know is, based on your opinion, what are the most impactful kind of technology evolutions in our space over those 40 years that had the best impact to drive the whole industry forward?
Well, quite frankly, the general public is starting to become aware of something they think of as zero knowledge. It's exciting to them. They don't really understand what it means. I was there at the beginning of that, proposing actually something more general, so including zero knowledge and minimum disclosure. And now we see the minimum disclosures coming back with snarks and all. And I think that will lead to the use of what I've called multi-party computations. You can read about that on Chaum.com if you want to see the history of that. But it's a generalization of snarks and smart contracts that we were able to prove in the 80s is as much as cryptography can do, what cryptography can do. And that type of technology is being used in the industry in China and in Europe, mainly dealing with government regulation. It's not really benefiting individual people, but I think that's the big opportunity. Those types of, we call them proofs, those kinds of cryptographic techniques that allow you to establish very general properties and do very general computations and so forth, have become so easy to use these days and reasonably efficient. Any kind of computer, you have to find things that are well suited for it to do efficiently. You can't, computers, it's not universal computation, is not as efficient for all types of problems, but basically, so the problems have to be adjusted to fit with those techniques, but that stuff is really, really powerful, really promising, and the fact that it can be widely used without having to really become a cryptographer, I think it's going to make a huge difference.
It must be great to see, obviously as one of the founding fathers of cryptography, to see the amount of Web 2 devs that are pouring into Web 3 now. I suppose you always have the foresight that will happen one day, but it just must be pretty fascinating to see thousands of devs now at these hackathons and hacker houses. What's it like to see that? Does it ever impact you? Like, wow, this is special.
Yeah, it's super exciting, and I remember remarking this without a prompting question 4 years ago, I think, sitting in one of these kind of interviews on stage. It's fantastic. If you look slightly different but relevant, is to look at physics. How much money is put into physics experiments, how many of the really smartest people in the academic system are funneled into physics, theoretical physics. If just a fraction of that were applied to trying to figure out how to use cryptography to make the world a better place, the world would be a much better place. It's because people didn't recognize the power of cryptography that very little effort has been put into it, and of course, a lot of people saw it as a way to make money, but there is a much deeper meaning that, I think is also, one of the things about this community is that it is, I think, really ethos driven. Most of the people that are really doing stuff are doing it because they believe in this and they have the vision. Of course, there are people that are, just interested in making money or whatever, stealing other people's money or whatever they're up to. But I think the people are really behind it and working and really, making everything happen. They're doing it based on ethos, and that's unlike anything else you see. In any other kind of activity. And if you look at different fields of, just back to the physics for just a minute, think about the impact of all that government money and all those, young people that are sent on these careers and on society. You measure it, 50 years ago, physics did actually contribute to semiconductors and so on. Now we're past that point. All this work, there's other fields, where we're just doing stuff just because it's science, but we've got social fragmentation, which is threatening to destroy civilization. The Davos attendees, the elite, powerful people of the world, were asked recently, every year they're asked, what's the top 10 dangers that the world faces? And in a recent one, a new item appeared on the list, and it was pretty much at the top of everybody, 80% of the people's list. It never happened before. It was called social fragmentation. And that's not even a thing exactly. It's not, people look at it, it's not even actually, but that's what people said they were worried about. And it's there's a divisiveness, there's a polarization, there's a lot of problems that have been created by the exploitation of people through Web 2. And people are now rising up to this, which I think is fantastic. But this is it's just a huge problem. And I think that it's an informational problem. It's the kind of problem that Web3 is perfectly well suited, and new social media and the new economic opportunities are, so this is something we can do, and we can solve this. This is probably one of the biggest problems in the world today. That if we solve it and create some social cohesion, then of course civilization can drive itself, let's say, up the Maslow hierarchy, so to speak, to come closer to reaching its potential. We could all be living on this planet in a far more prosperous and interesting and entertaining and valuable way than we are now. It's just unfortunate that the way things have unfolded, but Web3 has the potential to take us where we could be rather quickly.
Absolutely. This is fascinating, but unfortunately we're running out of time. I just wanted to say that XX Network is having a meetup that you're going to be at later today, right?
That's right, thank you. Yeah, so I'll see some of you there, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. It's such a pleasure. Thanks so much for having me, and it's great, really great to be here.
Thank you, David. Right, everyone put your hands together, please, for David Chaum.